What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, today we're going to take a look at our Week 10 matchup versus the Washington Redskins. But before we do get into it, really quickly, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this content, consider liking the video, subscribe to the channel, and sharing it with a Lions or an NFL fan that you think would enjoy this type of content. But with that being said, let's get into the reason that everybody's here, what the title says, the Week 10 matchup against the Washington Redskins. Now, in the last installation of this little series, the Detroit Lions had a heartbreaking loss to the Minnesota Vikings, and they are currently sitting at 5-3, somewhere near the top of the division, but at this point, the Vikings could be leading it. Now, obviously 5-3 is not a horrible record. However, you'd like to see them be a little bit higher if you really want to consider them a Super Bowl contender or even a real big threat in the playoffs. However, they are coming home to play the Washington Redskins this year. And while I think both teams improved a lot this season, which I will get into in a little bit. Last year we played them. Unfortunately, we lost 16-19 in Washington, but it wasn't really a fair comparison, I don't think. Now, not looking at the players that did not play in that game, Matthew Stafford, our starting quarterback, obviously the biggest loss. Kerryon Johnson, our starting running back. Jamal Agnew, our starting kick and punt returner. Trey Flowers and Deshaun Hand, two starting defensive linemen. Frank Ragnow, our starting center and arguably the best player on that offensive line. And Tracy Walker, our starting safety and arguably the best player in the secondary last year. Now, along with that, Marvin Hall and Damon Harrison both left the game very early with injuries. So that is 7 starters and a key contributor, big play threat in Marvin Hall that did not play most of the game if they played at all. Now, I mean, you look at that, right, and you say 16-19 within 3 points, and in the end, they just weren't able to pull out. Now, looking at the reasons why that happened, other than injuries, looking at players that played and what they did, Jeff Driscoll had probably his worst game of his career. Not only did he throw 3 interceptions and fumble the ball, he only contributed for 1 touchdown, which obviously it was a low-scoring game, but he only contributed for 1 touchdown and 4 turnovers. And the turnovers came at very inopportune times. Like the defense would get a big stop or they would get a huge turnover that should have sealed the game. If Matthew Stafford was in the game, if Kerryon Johnson, if all the starters were there, that would have sealed the game. However, Jeff Driscoll comes out the next drive and throws another interception to the Washington Redskins defense and gives them a chance. And Jeff Driscoll just kept giving them opportunities to come back and win that game. And eventually, Dwayne Haskins was good enough to do that. Dwayne Haskins started the season last year not very hot. When he came in, his first game, I believe he threw 3 interceptions. It was a very bad game for him. But near the end of the season, he actually got very comfortable in the offense, was pretty efficient, and was actually a very good quarterback by the end of the season. And going into next season with a new coach, obviously a new coach, so that could change some things, but the offense should not change a ton. Very similar weapons. They didn't add too many players on the offensive side of the ball, so that unit is pretty similar. I would expect with the experience and the fact that he was getting to that level last year, I would expect him to come back next year and be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I think Dwayne Haskins is a good quarterback. He showed at Ohio State that he could play at a high level. Last year, he was kind of thrown into the dumpster fire of the Washington Redskins. They were not very good. Unlike the Lions, they weren't really decimated by injuries. They just didn't really have a quarterback last year until Dwayne Haskins came in middle of the season. The roster all around him was not very good, excluding the defensive line, which I will talk about. And he was not thrown into a good situation, and by the end of the season, he actually looked like a very capable starting quarterback in the NFL. So I have faith in Haskins personally. I understand if people don't like him, and I understand if people don't have faith in him, but looking at what he did by the end of the season, I actually think that he'll be a very good quarterback next year. Now, going into key departures, obviously for the Detroit Lions, as we've talked about several times, Darius Slay, Rashawn Melvin, Snacks Harrison, and Devon Kennard, obviously all big factors all huge contributing factors last year, are leaders of the defense outside of Rashawn Melvin and, players that we leaned on last year. All of them are gone. And we've talked about them a ton. I'm not going to go too much in detail, but obviously those are the big losses for the Lions. And the Washington Redskins really didn't lose too many pieces this year. Now, they lost Josh Norman, but by the end of the season, he wasn't even playing that much. They gave him a huge contract after 2015 where he had an amazing season with the Carolina Panthers. And then when his previous coach, Ron Rivera, came in, he said, nope, get Josh Norman out of here. We're not re-signing him. And I believe he went to the Buffalo Bills on a 1-year contract. And he hasn't been the same since he was in Carolina. He just wasn't that good of a cornerback outside. He had one really good breakout season, and after that, he really dropped significantly and wasn't that good. And then Jordan Reed, who was a very good tight end, very athletically gifted, very talented. He just unfortunately has not been able to stay healthy for a majority of his career. When he is on the field, he is definitely a threat, definitely somebody that you need to watch out for and scheme against. But unfortunately for the Redskins, throughout his career, he has not been able to stay on the field. Now, looking at key additions for the Detroit Lions, obviously we have Okudah and Trufant. We have Jamie Collins and Daron Harmon. A lot of secondary players. The Lions really look to rebuild their defense this year after being one of the worst-ranked units in the league, giving up over 4,000 passing yards and, a ton of rushing yards. They just needed to get better, and I think they did last year, or this past offseason. But the Redskins also got a lot better. Not only did their defensive line, who was already a very strong unit, are the strongest on their team probably, and arguably a top defensive line in the NFL already, add a monster in Chase Young. But in the back end, not only did they get Thomas Davis Sr., who is a veteran linebacker presence that should help, they also picked up Kendall Fuller, who played for the Redskins previously, and then obviously last year was a Super Bowl champion, had a game-sealing interception in the Super Bowl against Jimmy Garoppolo, played for the Chiefs, is a very, very good cornerback. They also added Ronald Darby, who is a serviceable number 2, another Super Bowl champion with the Philadelphia Eagles. Very good corner, very aggressive, and I think those two are going to be a very good pair in Washington for a secondary. Their safeties aren't great. The rest of their secondary isn't great, but those two guys should be a very good duo, and obviously their pass rush should be able to get home more times than not. Now, I think Chase Young is the biggest addition. Chase Young, it was kind of in the back of every Lions fan's mind that, yeah, we're probably not going to get him, but could you imagine if we did get him? Could you imagine if the Redskins traded out, or if they chose to take an Isaiah Simmons or a Jeffrey Okudah? I think a lot of Lions fans were really, really hoping that happened, but they weren't expecting it. And obviously it didn't happen. But Chase Young, defensive player, almost won the Heisman. I think he came 4th or 5th place in the Heisman race as a defensive lineman after missing 2 games and being schemed against every single week. He still had 16.5 sacks for the Buckeyes, still was at the Heisman ceremony, and really finished the season kind of poorly, even though it wasn't really his fault. I mean, he was being triple teamed against Clemson. Players were scheming, or teams were scheming against Chase Young to get the ball out fast, to make sure Chase Young never even had an opportunity. They would run read option at him so that no matter what choice he made, it would be wrong. He is just a game changer. He is somebody that the Lions need to scheme around. Every single player, every single team that plays the Washington Redskins needs to scheme around Chase Young, because he is a game changer. He's a guy that dictates what you do on the offense, because if he's on a good day, you need to get the ball out fast. You're not going to have time to do play action deep shots. You're not going to have time to sit in the pocket for 5-6 seconds. I mean, you're going to have to either run away from him, or you're going to have to throw a lot of screens, a lot of quick passes, because him and that defensive line are going to get pressure. And I think that is going to be the biggest factor in this game on that side of the ball. I think the biggest matchup to watch when we play the Redskins this year is going to be their pass rush versus our offensive line. Their pass rush is proven. Their pass rush has proven that they can get home, that they can be an elite unit in the NFL, and our offensive line hasn't done anything. Our offensive line has Frank Ragnow and Taylor Decker, and then a bunch of question marks. Big V hasn't been a starter, hasn't played a ton of games in the NFL, and while he has played and played very well, we don't know what he looks like as a true starter. Jonah Jackson, 3rd-round guard. We haven't seen him play in the NFL. Logan Stenberg, 4th-round guard. We haven't seen him play in the NFL. There are so many question marks on that offensive line that I think it'll be tough if our offensive line can't keep up. And I think that the Redskins could definitely take this game if their pass rush can get home a ton, which is very possible because of all the talent on that line. Obviously, they have not only Chase Young, they have Ryan Kerrigan, they have Daron Payne, they have Matt Ioannidis, they have Jonathan Allen. They have so many good pass rushers that were good last year, and with the addition of Chase Young and hopefully bolstering that secondary a little bit to make the quarterback hold it just that much more, I think the Redskins defense could actually make a big jump this year. Now, in saying that, the run defense for the Washington Redskins was very, very bad last year. They gave up the 2nd most rushing yards in the NFL, and I think that that's something the Lions need to take advantage of. I think not only are the Lions looking to become a running football team, they drafted Jonah Jackson, they drafted Logan Stenberg, they drafted DeAndre Swift in the second round. They picked up Big V, who is more of a run blocking tackle. Frank Ragnow is one of the nastiest centers in the league when it comes to run blocking. They're looking to take pressure off of Stafford and put it on to Carryon and DeAndre and Bo and Ty Johnson and even Jason Huntley a little bit. And I think that if we can run the ball effectively, while Chase Young is not bad at stopping the run, that's not his strong suit. He's a pass rusher. And while obviously the guys on the defensive line are fantastic, the rushing defense for them last year was atrocious. It obviously gave up the second most rushing yards in the league. I think if we can dominate them on the ground and not give that pass rush a chance to even get going, if we run the ball early and often and that pass rush doesn't have a chance to get in rhythm to, get a couple sacks early and, really set the tone. I think whoever sets the tone first, whether it be us with the run game or the Washington Redskins with their pass rush, is going to dictate the game. But with that being said, I do think the Detroit Lions pulled this out. I think they were the better team last year all around, and I think that they are the better team this year. I think both teams made significant improvements. The Washington Redskins, I thought, had a very good offseason, getting Chase Young, getting a few weapons in the draft for Dwayne Haskins. They got two very good starting caliber cornerbacks in the back end. And I think that their defense is going to be much better, and I think their offense is going to be much better than last year. And I would expect them maybe not to contend for playoffs, but they're a team that you, like the Lions last year, that you can't go up against them and think that this is an easy win because they are very talented on both sides of the ball. And I think the Lions, very similarly to the Redskins, improved their secondary. I think they improved their pass rush a little bit from what they had last year. I think that their offense is going to take another huge step forward, even though it was already one of the best offenses in the league last year when Stafford was playing. But I think that the Lions were the better team last year. I think the Lions are the better team this year, even with both teams jumping tremendously. And I think that the Lions pull this one out. I think it's a low-scoring game again, kind of like last year. But I think Matthew Stafford has a couple more touchdowns than Jeff Driscoll did last year. He's not going to throw those game-losing interceptions. He's not going to give that defense a chance to get back in the game if we are up by a couple scores. And I think that was the biggest factor last year, is that Jeff Driscoll just kept giving the Redskins chance after chance after chance. And eventually, even the worst teams in the NFL, if you give them 3-4 chances to get back in a game, eventually they're going to take advantage, and that's what the Redskins did last year. But with that being said, that is all I have for you today. The Detroit Lions are currently 6-3, looking pretty good after Week 10. Obviously, they're looking to contend for playoff spots with 7 spots open this year. Even if they don't win the North, they have a pretty good chance of making it in at 6-3 at this point, and they're looking to be very dangerous in the NFL. But if you disagree, if you think the Redskins improved enough to take this game, if you think that it's going to be one of those games that the Lions should win and they just end up not winning for some reason, that like they do every year, let me know in the comments. Obviously, if there's Lions news before tomorrow, I will make another video letting every single person know. But with that being said, that is all I have for you today. Have an absolutely fantastic day. If you guys have any suggestions for videos that you guys want to see, obviously leave those in the comments or DM me on Instagram. Link will be in the description or in the About tab on my YouTube channel. And with that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Have an absolutely fantastic day. Thank you everybody all so much for watching, and I'll see everybody later. Bye.